Well, good Saturday morning, everybody, and it's a little bit of a dreary day again. Just continues on that bent, I guess. Just doesn't want anybody to get their gardens in, I'm guessing. At any rate, today we are going to continue on our way through Acts. We're in the 16th chapter. We're just going to look at 5 verses again today. We've been kind of taking bites of 5 here lately. I'm not sure what the deal is with that. We're going to look at verses 11 to 15 today in Acts chapter 16. We had a couple of days with Paul not quite being in track, and then yesterday, remember, he finally acquiesced to the call of the Spirit, and he seems to have found the direction of this second missionary journey now. And so he is now on his way across the Aegean Sea, or about to be on his way across the Aegean Sea. So that's what's going to happen today. They're going to set sail. So with that, let's just jump into it, and then we'll talk about it. We are in Acts, again, 16, verses 11 to 15. And this is a part of the we verses. Good morning, Phyllis. This is where they believe Luke is along on the journey, because he talks about we here instead of just talking about it in the other tense, I guess. He is present there. So most people believe that Luke was along on the second journey. All right. We set sail from Troas and took a straight course to Samothrace, the following day to Neapolis, and from there to Philippi, which is a leading city of the district of Macedonia and a Roman colony. We remained in this city for some days. On the Sabbath day, we went outside the gate by the river, where we supposed there was a place of prayer, and we sat down and spoke to the women who had gathered there. A certain woman named Lydia, a worshiper of God, was listening to us. She was from the city of Thyatira and a dealer in purple cloth. The Lord opened her heart to listen eagerly to what was said by Paul. When she and her household were baptized, she urged us, saying, "If you have judged me to be faithful to the Lord, come and stay at my home." And she prevailed upon us. So, almost everybody knows this story of Lydia. It's one of those things we talk about, and women's involvement in the early church movement, which was very substantial. And she is, of course, as most know, a dealer in purple cloth. Purple cloth was extraordinarily expensive. It was a symbol of royalty, and in some parts of the world in those days, only the king could have purple clothing or purple cloth. It was not allowed for anyone else. But it was a very expensive thing to manufacture. The means by which they were manufacturing it was by using a snail, or a species of snail, that they would gather up, and so they would have to gather quite a number of these snails in order to produce enough dye to dye the fabric that they're dealing with. It was an ancient practice, though. It dated back to the Phoenicians, and probably as early as 1570 BC they were using the same type of dye. So it isn't something that was highly prized. It was something that had been being done, though, for a long time, and it was something that was a status symbol to have purple, and to be a dealer in it would have also had been a certain status involved. And it would seem that this Lydia is the head of the household, and she has some considerable means that she would have a home large enough to accommodate all of these men that are traveling here. And of course, it's also quite a thing that she's inviting them into her home. So that, of course, we don't want that to escape us, the gravity of that situation. So, but here we have Paul and his group that are traveling with him, being attuned in again to the Spirit. There isn't apparently a synagogue here. There's not 10 Jewish men apparently in this area where they're at, and they are thus left to find the place where that people would gather. If there wasn't a synagogue, there would generally, if there were Jewish people, there would be a place where they would gather for prayer and perhaps a bit of what we might identify as a Bible study kind of a thing. They wouldn't have a true synagogue service because it wasn't a synagogue, but they would have something going on, a place of prayer, they're calling it. And Lydia appears to be a God-fearer. She appears to be someone that is following the faith, and perhaps she's leading this prayer group down by the river. That's very possible. She seems to be someone that takes charge. Just put it that way. She is a dealer and has her own business, and that wouldn't have been particularly. That wouldn't have been unheard of, but it wouldn't be particularly common in that time, right, for a woman to have a business and to be as successful as it appears Lydia is. But what's going on here is Paul's normal mode of operandi, we've talked about before, is to go to the synagogue. Now he's in a position where he can't do what he normally does. He's he's at his wit's end, I'm certain, and it's like, this is what I do. This is what I go. I go to the synagogue. I preach to the God-fearers and I preach to the Jews, and we see what we can come up with from that. This is the way I always do things. What do you mean I have to do something different? What do you mean I have to adapt? So Paul here is listening to the Spirit, and he's adapting. And that's the message I see in this, that I think that we need to look at, is that we have to be able to adjust what we're doing in order to fit the situation of ministry, as especially evangelizing, when we're dealing with people trying to evangelize. I talked about that, while I was in the hospital, I was witnessing to the nurses not being overtly religious, I guess. I'm trying to do it a little more stealthily, because that's you need to not be overbearing in that. But nonetheless, it was still something I was trying to accomplish. You should be trying to accomplish that no matter where we find ourselves. And that's what Paul's got here. Can't go to the synagogue, my normal mode of operandi, so I'm going to go down to the river and look for a place of prayer and look around. He probably had been there for a few days. It said that they remained in the city for some days, is what Luke tells us. And so he probably had heard about this group of women that gathered at the river. And that's the other thing. This seems to be a group of women that are gathering, and yet Paul goes and witnesses to the women. That wouldn't have been particularly looked upon fondly, I guess, let's put it that way, in that time and age, for a group of men to go down and deal with the women. At least he wasn't alone. There were other men with him, and there were other women. It wasn't like he and Lydia were all by themselves. But nonetheless, the message here, I retract or retrace my steps here, is this ability to adapt, the ability to listen to the Spirit and do what we have in front of us, perhaps in a way that we're not used to, or perhaps in a way we're not particularly comfortable with even, but we still adapt to the situation we're in, and we allow that situation to allow us to witness, no matter what we're dealing with. So with that, I'm going to let you go. Come Monday, we will be, Paul and Silas get themselves a bit of hot water come Monday. So please come back and join us at 9 o'clock on Monday. Don't forget, tomorrow is Sunday. We won't have a devotion at 9, but we will be live streaming the worship service for those that wish to see the service online, or we will be in the sanctuary. You're very welcome to come and join us for live worship. Love to see you. We do have a lot of stuff going on tomorrow, different things that we have. So it's going to be a little bit of a different worship service. I may have to watch my sermon length, because we've got a lot of moving parts tomorrow, recognizing people and those types of things. So with that, have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. Have a very blessed day. And as I always say, please be a blessing to someone today. Tell them about Jesus, no matter how you have to witness. Okay? Bye-bye.